single mom of 4 living in a New York City DV shelter, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That's if you want to be notified when I drop a new video. A lot of you have a lot of questions, and I'm going to answer them all. Maybe. So, Lay, what made you choose New York? Well, I chose New York City to be exact, because New York has a law called right to shelter. What that means is as soon as you step foot on New York City soil, you have the right to shelter. So no matter where you came from, they have to give you shelter. I went through a lengthy intake process through PATH, located in the Bronx. I made my decision to come to New York City once I realized I could no longer stay in my hometown due to my abusive husband. Before I made this decision, I called the domestic violence hotline for Illinois every single night that I was able to. And every single night I called, I got turned around time and time again. A lot of New Yorkers do not realize how scarce the resources are in other states. So when people that's not from New York come to New York, native New Yorkers like to tell us to stay in our own state to find resources where we're from. And that just shows how spoiled New Yorkers are. They think that other states have what New York has. A viral TikTok video is what even brought me to New York. Seen a content creator hosting her New York City shelter apartment. Yes, I said apartment. Equipped with a living room, kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, just like any other normal apartment, except it's a shelter. Once I seen that, and me being in danger, I knew that I had to be in NYC. So I quietly packed my things behind my husband's back. I booked the cheapest flights we can find. I waited until he left out for work. I gathered our things and we left. I don't talk about this a lot in my regular content, but we had to leave behind our dear pet cat, Oscar. We miss Oscar so much, and my kids talk about him nearly every day. Wish I would have known this sooner, but when you flee a domestic violence relationship and you have pets, there are shelter systems that will accept you and your animal, because people are less likely to leave domestic violence relationships fearing that they'll have to leave their loved animals behind. Now, obviously, I did not know this when I left, and plus, I didn't know how I was going to travel on a plane with 4 kids, let alone bringing my pet. Now back to PATH. PATH stands for Prevention, Assistance, and Temporary Housing. It is where you will go to eventually be placed in a shelter. Me and my 4 babies went early in the morning. I'd say around 8 a.m. We were placed in a family shelter by 7 p.m. that night. Our first shelter in New York City was a shelter apartment located in a family shelter. Family shelter is for any homeless family, not specifically domestic violence victims. Once I was placed in the family shelter, I was told I would receive a call from NOVA. NOVA is the No Violence Again Act. It's a term used for victims of domestic violence seeking shelter specifically. Once I was placed in the family shelter, they said that I would receive a call from someone in NOVA. I received a call a day or so later to become NOVA certified, which means I will be eligible for domestic violence shelter and resources in New York City. During that interview, they told me that I was not eligible, even though I gave them my whole story. Asked about restraining orders and police reports, which I wasn't sure why it was necessary, given that online website states that they understand that abuse isn't just physical, and there's really no report you can make for emotional abuse. Once I realized that I wasn't going to become NOVA certified, I took matters into my own hands and called the NYC domestic violence hotline myself. Once I was connected with someone, I told them my story and how I felt I could benefit from being in a domestic violence shelter versus a regular family shelter. Domestic violence shelter accepted me immediately. While it was an emergency domestic violence shelter, which leads you to only a 6-month stay. The shelter I was placed in came and got us the next day. They sent us a car. Mind y'all, this was happening in the dead of winter in New York City. The air was cold and the snow was high. We made it to the DV shelter. That was probably the first time I could actually breathe since I landed in NYC. Being in the previous shelter, a regular family shelter, I just knew that I wouldn't get the help that I so desperately needed. Mom, 4 kids, new city, and just experienced domestic violence. I felt the resources I needed and my kids needed was far greater. Yes, in a lot of my content, I encourage moms who are in domestic violence relationships and have absolutely nowhere to turn. Yes, come to New York City. I don't care how native New Yorkers feel like it's very selfish because y'all aren't the only ones suffering in the world. Y'all aren't the only ones struggling. And a lot of the programs aren't just New York City funded. They are federally funded. And as an American citizen, we have the right to go wherever we please to seek shelter. Yes, a lot of people do abuse the system. But in this economy, you just have to know that a lot of folks are struggling, especially moms with babies experiencing DV. I would never tell a mom in fear of her life to tough it out and stay in a state with her abuser that has little to no resource. Fear that I may or may not receive those same resources. With how long New York has been having these resources, why haven't native New Yorkers been taking advantage of them? Why aren't native New Yorkers already in a better position given that they've lived here their entire life? I'm not one to judge, but I just have a lot of questions. Why is the anger for the people? Moving along, how has New York been treating me? Given that I'm now staying in my third NYC shelter apartment, and while I've experienced many ups and downs, I say overall New York has been treating me fairly well. Shelter I'm currently in, we cannot have an air conditioner. It's against the rules because they claim that the building is too old to keep up with the power that many air conditioners will pull. But in my personal opinion, I just feel like they don't want to pay the high electric bill. Because I've stayed in a shelter just as old as the one I'm in now, and we were able to have air conditioning. So yes, me and my babies experienced a very hot and miserable summer. Did you know New York has heat waves? The weather got as hot as 110 degrees. Imagine you walking inside of a human-sized oven, because that's exactly what my shelter apartment felt like. So me and my baby spent most of those days outside, at the library, at McDonald's, and different fast food restaurants. Anywhere that had AC and could keep us cool, we were there. When I felt like I just couldn't take it no more, I was ready to give up. I had even heavily considered taking my husband back. I had begun to become so miserable, I started to think maybe the relationship wasn't that bad. I mean, I hadn't experienced a summer without air since I was a kid. But I'm still here, and I still try to find ways to be grateful. I've been in the shelter system 8 months now, from January to August. I'm at a point like, why would I quit now? I will be receiving that housing soon. I will get my happily ever after. All of my babies are about to be in school. I love New York for that. My babies are 7, 5, 3, and 4. New York has free pre-K, 3K, and 2K. That means that babies that are 4, 3, and 2 get to go to school for free. Name another state that does that. I'm sorry, native New Yorkers, but I love your city too. Now that we're on the subject, what are my plans? I'm currently in line for housing, so I do have an housing application in process. Fingers crossed that everything goes as perfect as it can go. And although I'm still in shelter and my kids will be going to school, I will be trying to find ways to better my life and gain stability on my own. So for me, that will look like going to school, looking for jobs that align with my kids' school schedule, diving deeper into my social media career, making sure I take time to rest, care for myself, get some me time and therapy, because as a mom, that is very, very important. It is important that you pour into yourself because you cannot pour from an empty cup. I'm also thinking about getting back to doing hair. Before I left my home state, I was a braider for 10 years. Leaving behind my business and clientele was very hard for me to do. I definitely would consider rebuilding that one day. Using my talents to earn money has always been a part of who I am. It has been harder in a new big city with no childcare. I am now wondering, what could that look like now that all my kids will be in school? You know, I'm beginning to look at New York through a completely different lens. I'm looking at it much more like a stepping stone. Something that will get me to the next better chapter. Using this rent-free, bill-free time to save for the life that I actually want for me and my kids. A lot of folks want me to stay just because the benefits are better. But while I agree to a certain extent, I will never limit myself just to live off of government assistance, because my main goal is to become a functioning, working adult and mom. I think that that's the problem with a lot of people, because when you give someone all of the power to feed you, they have the power to starve you as well. I don't like to think negatively, but what if one day these assistants weren't available? What would we really truly do? So I really feel that a lot of us women and children that are on these assistants should have an end goal, should have a plan. And that is what I'll be spending my time doing. Saving, planning, while also utilizing the resources that are available to me to the best of my ability. This year has taught me more than a lot. I mean, relying on my husband and my husband alone is what got me here. So you can call it PTSD, but I would just never want to be in that position again at the hands of anyone. Although I am grateful, I am also being very mindful. I'm also mindful that my children are watching me, and this is not the life that I want for them. If you've made it this far in the video, comment blue. And once again, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you want to be notified when I drop a new video. Okay, bye.